This is Manda the Six, and welcome to another Base Game Plus build. These are builds in which I limit what I can use to base game content and the content of only one other pack. This can be one expansion pack, one game pack, or one stuff pack. These builds do not include the use of any custom content. This creates an interesting challenge as a builder, as well as makes these builds more accessible for others on the gallery, be it for simmers who have a limited number of packs installed in their game, or by simmers who are on console and do not have access to downloadable content, such as mods or custom content. Today's build uses content from base game and the City Living expansion pack. The inspiration for this build was a gameplay challenge idea that I had. It would be a landlord or landlady challenge. Some working ideas would be getting a sim able to amass enough funds to make additional apartment units on their home lot, since this is a starter only budget and it has the shell and room for one unit, which would be the owner's apartment, as well as the act of inviting other tenants to live on the premises, being using the roommate system or by moving the sims into the household via gameplay or just adding more sims to it. Um, with that idea in mind, I used a single sim starter home budget, which is 20,000 simoleons, and stuck to it as closely as I could. Initially, that meant reducing the number of floors from a 3-story apartment down to a 2-story when I was constructing the shell, and then later on, really paring down some of the more expensive items into something more budget friendly to for a single starter sim. Which is quite handy given some of the grungier counters and cabinets that come with city living. That said, there is plenty of room to expand by design, and it would be fairly easy to copy the empty shell for additional stories in the build. So getting to the build proper, I used sort of decks and used the ladders to create a fire escape sort of aesthetic. Used bricking and kind of went for old school, like Brooklyn tenement houses, stuff that is very old school industrial. Added a little bit of trimming. Used the narrow city living apartment windows and some of the base game, just the sliding ones you can imagine. Those might be only your access to fire escape. I didn't feel the need to add an elevator into this apartment since it only ends up being 2 stories tall. So there is a staircase within the front hallway that allows access from the first story up to the second story, in addition to the emergency ladder. I mess around a lot with the roof shape, and later I will be using the platforming tool in order to both save some simoleons from deleting the half walls and have a thicker roof shape. It also allows, because their platforms and platform trims are free, that's another area of the budget that in which I save some money. And I also add a little overhanging roof above the topmost balcony, so it is also sheltered from the elements. So if you do have seasons installed, snow and rain aren't going to get on the balcony, which is handy. that would make for a little bit of a treacherous balcony in inclement weather. Getting inside, I play around with the sizing of these apartment units. The easiest way that I found to calculate the floor space was to chop the units in half with walls, having them as a singular room, and then comparing the prices by just using the same floor tiling. So basically, in one room it might be 400 simoleons, the other might be 300, and making adjustments to the walls to make the unit sizes comparable. In any apartment building, you'd have variable floor plans, but I went under the assumption of these would be fairly even sized floor units. And just adding some HVAC systems, adding some details, making sure I light up the build ahead of time, and just kind of using cheaper but very solid looking doors. And then I grab the apartment mailboxes, add a little pop of color. They don't always need to be just the standard gray, just for a little bit of fun in the front room. And I do shrink down the apartment a couple of times, so in addition to reducing from 3 stories down to 2 stories. I also do make adjustments to the apartment itself. So shrinking it, it allows for additional expansion, and it also means there's a lot of space at the rear of the building, which can either be extended for more apartment units. You could put a park there. You could put a shared communal space, what have you. There's a lot of options that you could do, like giant tower for your landlord, pool, picnic area, communal gardens, whatever you see fit. Once I figured out the proportions of the owner's unit, I plunked in where I wanted the bathroom and remembered to continue lighting it up. So there's a good amount of outdoor lighting from the windows and the balconies, and there's a lot of good lighting for these emergency areas to make sure that tenants can see where they're going in the nighttime or in inclement weather. Within the apartment itself, I make separations of the living space. So the main entrance is right into the kitchen, and what will serve as the dining room and living area are the larger separate space. The bedroom is the frontmost facing room of this unit, making use of those double windows. And I realized watching this playback that the other units that are facing the back of the building don't have any windows, because if you think of having several multi-unit buildings next to each other, the right-handed wall would likely be an alleyway, or it would be an additional building. So realistically, the apartments that are near the back of the building would likely be cheaper, or if it makes sense for your landlord or landlady to expand on and add some more natural lighting options with additional windows, that is completely up to whoever uses this lot and whatever gameplay style you're going for. If you want to make like a dingy apartment that is dark and dank, go for it. Like there's a lot of room for playing around with different apartment styles by design. For the owner's unit, I went for some bright colors to liven up the area. The palette was mainly sunny yellow, dark green, and teals that come with many of the city living furniture pieces. These are also fairly versatile pieces in terms of their color swatch selection. So were you to move in a sim whose aesthetic or personality doesn't suit these bright colors, it'd be fairly easy to swap things out while maintaining the starter home budget. I think that having a neutral style to the unit's walls and floors allows for whatever sims to live here to have their personality shine through what furnishings they would realistically be able to bring and what sort of decorating style they choose. So that allows for a little bit more versatility in whichever sims move in here. So went for more affordable flooring, lino, cheaper, and I think it's the basketball flooring, and just kind of boring but still warm beige walling, and it allows for personalization that comes with the Sims, as opposed to alterating the floors and walls, because realistically it would entirely depend on what sort of what sort of lease agreement you have with your owner, as to whether you're even allowed to paint your walls or redo the flooring. This is around the time I was, keeping in mind the starter home budget, the $20,000. I swap out the appliances for those really grungy looking ones that come with city living. I reconfigured the living space a little bit, swap out some of the more expensive furniture pieces to simpler ones, swap out all of the counters to, again, the grungy city living ones, and it's just a way of trimming the budget in areas that still allow for the rooms to not feel super empty, and also kind of adds to this being a cheaper, or rather a more affordable apartment building as a starter home for a sim. So still a good use of the space without it entirely being it's not going to be like the highest end stuff. It's going to be stuff that, you know, if you're moving into your first apartment, you have a limited budget, making sure you can make your rent payments, what have you. But I was still able to use a lot of the city living pieces are really nice, kind of have like a reclaimed styling to them, and I really do appreciate the amount of color and amount of different cultures that come in this pack. It really livens up space in a way that a lot of the other packs haven't for styling. I do go back into this, so it's not part of the recording, but I do go back into this build. Delete, I believe I delete the rug, and I reconfigure the house just a little bit just so I can afford an outdoor bin. I think that's my Achilles heel. Always got to remember to do an outdoor bin. So this is the landlord starter. I will put a link to the gallery below where you can download it. All you need is City Living Pack in order for this to work, and I look forward to hearing feedback on the build, any ideas you guys have for how you want to use it, any renovations, anything at all. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye bye.